Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the wrong show. The HubSpot users group in Salt Lake City. So used to running my other event that I do as well. So anyways, welcome everybody. Today is August 12th. We're super excited to be back and have everybody here today. Really quick, let's just go over a little bit of Zoom etiquette. So please keep in mind, we are recording today. So please act appropriately if you're on video. Make sure that you're muted during the presentation to help eliminate any background noise that Kyle's giving his presentation. And questions during his presentation today, you can either use the chat, and we will get to that at the end of the presentation. And then also, if you want to ask something in person on video, we'd love to have you ask the question, and we'll do all the Q&As here towards the end. Again, we're super excited today to have Kyle come on. This is a topic that is really hot, especially since the new tools are being rolled out inside of HubSpot, but we're talking about how to do account-based marketing in HubSpot. And our guest presenter today is Kyle Jepson. He is the CRM master, I do believe, at HubSpot Academy. He's got some of the best videos and tutorials online, so make sure you go check some of those out. My name is Darren Burnson, but I do go by Doc. I am the owner and a digital sales and marketing growth strategist with my company, Burnco Media. I'm also the HubSpot user group co-leader. We've got Brandon Carter with me as well, and he's the senior marketing automation strategist at a company called Digital Reach. So we are thrilled to have everybody here. Today's agenda, we're doing this little bit of housekeeping here with myself and Brandon, and then we'll be doing the how to do ABM and HubSpot with Kyle. And then we'll have some Q&A and wrap up at the end. So I already mentioned that about the questions. So we look forward to answering questions for you guys at the end. Our goals for the Salt Lake City HubSpot user group, frequency events. Hey, we're back. We haven't had an event since last September. We are way bummed out. We apologize, but COVID hit, business hit, and we all got busy. We are committed to bring this thing back and really rock the user groups, and it'll be all online, at least through the end of the year. And so we will have at least one event like this per quarter, but actually we've got one set up that I'll talk to you about again next month. And we might have additional workshops and what we call intensives coming up as well. As you all hopefully know by now that these user groups are for you. We're not here to sell to anybody. This is a learning environment, and we are just here to help you grow with HubSpot. So mark your calendars. Brandon, you want to cover this intensive information?
Oh, yes, I do. So yeah, obviously everyone is here because you are a HubSpot user, or you have some interest in learning more about how to use HubSpot. And while we do get a lot accomplished in these bigger group meetings and you learn a lot of stuff, you don't necessarily get a lot of time to dig down into the tool itself. So to kind of make up for that gap, we put on a small group, what we call intensives. And we're going to try to do these once a month. But basically it is everyone who's interested, up to 12 people can come in. It's a small group private conversation where we dig into each other's HubSpot portals. We talk about specific situations or things that you might be facing. For example, we've built out workflows, like nurture workflows together in the past. We have looked at like attribution setups. And so, yeah, it's a time to really bring your expertise and help some other people with their issues, and bring your issues and have some smart people help you out with them. So we will be sending out invites. If you are here today and you're hearing this now, you'll get first dibs. The spots do typically fill up fast. And, we do keep them small on purpose so that, everyone gets a chance to talk and to sort of get their issue, so to speak, looked at. So yeah, keep an eye out. As soon as we're done here, or shortly after we're done here, we will send out those invitations, and look forward to seeing you all.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, and we'll have that by Friday. So watch for that email. We'll have the registration open for that. So please only RSVP if you know 100% that you are going to be able to make it, because we will have it capped at 12. Also, we're working on our speaker, and we have the date tentatively planned for September 9th. This is going to be covering the HubSpot content marketing system. platforms. So we're going to be talking about all the new releases that just came out for the CMS, the new drag and drop editors, the new themes, and that kind of stuff. So whether you run your HubSpot website or your website on HubSpot or just landing pages or whatever, this is going to be an update that you're not going to want to miss. And then we're also looking at having another event at least in October or November. So do stay tuned for that. And then, like I said, we'll have at least one intensive per month. For those of you who don't know or have never been, Inbound is sadly not going on this year, at least in person. So I did want to let everybody know that Inbound is now online. You know, I'm sure you've all got emails from it, but it looks like a fantastic event. It's a 2-day online experience this year. It's either free for certain access to the event as well, up to $119, but currently tickets are for $89. Worth price of admission alone is the CEO or the old CEO of Disney. So I'm super stoked for that. So that's my 2 cents on that. Mark your calendars as well. So those of you who don't know, I also run this other group. I'm the president of Utah DMC, and we put on some other fantastic events twice monthly, online as well as in person back when we can get back to it. But this is going to be an amazing event. If you guys have got anybody in your organization who runs paid marketing, you've got to get your team or that person to this event to see Marty Weintraub. He's probably one of my favorite presenters I've ever seen. He's just so engaging. But he's going to be giving a presentation that he's never given. We're the first ones to see it. And honestly, like he says, this is going to be mind splitting. So if you guys are interested in going, you can check that out at utahdmc.org. And feel free to join. It's free, and we'd love to have you at that event as well. I always like to keep people aware of other events that are coming up in the area. And also, too, we're always looking for additional speakers. So while we always do try to grab folks from HubSpot, such as Kyle, if anybody here has ever got something rad that they've done inside the platform and you want to share it with the group, maybe we can have an event all around you and you presenting and telling us how you solved a really cool problem or some sort of a case study. So if you are interested in that, please reach out to myself or Brandon. And while you're on here today, if you have any nuggets of wisdom or something that you want to share and you want to let the world know that you were on an event with us and listening to Kyle, please use the SLC Hub hashtag on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you live, so we can follow along and respond to you guys. Lastly, if you guys are interested, we do have a Slack channel as well. We just have a much easier way for everybody to gain access to this, but it's a fairly active group, and we'd love to get it jiving a little bit more. So if you're interested in joining the HubSpot user group for the Salt Lake City Hub, direct message myself or Brandon on Twitter. We just need your email address so we can get you guys added to the Slack channel. So who is ready to go? I know I am. I'm ready to turn this baby over to Kyle. So let's go ahead and stop the screen share and introduce Kyle. Kyle, how are you, my friend?
Good. Just figuring out how to share my screen and unmute at the same time. Apparently
yes.
Not possible.
Cool.
Cool.
Well,
All
I'll
right.
turn it over to you. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and we'll chat here towards the end.
Okay. So before you go, Doc, are you seeing my title slide now? Did I share the right screen?
I am seeing your title slide. Yes,
Perfect.
sir.
All right. So going to talk about ABM and HubSpot. I'm Kyle Jepson. If you know me, you probably know me from the HubSpot Academy certifications I've worked on. Or perhaps you've seen some of my kids on LinkedIn. Apparently that's becoming very popular now too. But I just skip through this really quickly. HubSpot Academy, as you may or may not be aware, is the educational arm of HubSpot. And we're all about educating and inspiring people. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about ABM. And I'm kind of dividing this presentation into 2 halves. First half is these first 2 parts of why you should consider ABM and what implementing an ABM strategy or campaign looks like. Then the second half is a live demo in HubSpot and a Q&A. It is 1:15. I will talk as fast as I can to make sure we have time for that Q&A at the end. But please feel free to reach out to me on your favorite social channel. I'll have contact info at the end here. I'm happy to engage further afterward. Doc covered this really well. I assume by now you're all pretty familiar with Zoom, but just as a quick test, and while I try to figure out where in the world the chat pane went, just let me know real quick in the chat how you feel about ABM right now. Rank your expertise here. 1 being the least, I don't know anything, but I'm excited to learn, and 5 being the most, where you think you should be teaching this instead of me, which will not offend me in the least. Go ahead and drop some answers in, and I cannot see the chat pane. I don't know where it is. There it is. Okay. Numbers. Cool. All right. We've got a pretty good spread here. I'm seeing lots of 1s and lots of 4s. If I had to guess, those were the most common numbers. So I will do my best to make this applicable to everyone. Let's start with why you should consider an account-based approach. Now, if you've heard anything from HubSpot Academy or really from HubSpot in general, you know we are all in on the idea of inbound, which we define as a method for growing an organization by building lasting relationships with people. And an ABM is a growth strategy in which marketing and sales work together to create really personalized experiences for a select target group of accounts. These two ideas are not actually at odds. This is not an either or. This is not pick one of two. If you get nothing else out of this presentation, I want you to come away believing that inbound and ABM complement each other really nicely. If you think about your business as a farm, every farm, regardless of what you're growing, needs good soil, right? But then depending on what you're growing, you're going to use different techniques. If you're growing a lot of small plants like carrots in this picture, or especially something like hay, you're not going to give as much individualized a treatment to each plant as you will if you have, say, an orchard. And it's really easy to jump to the conclusion that hay or carrots is inbound, these one-to-many approaches, and apple orchards are ABM. But actually, I would encourage you to think of the soil as inbound, regardless of what your market looks like, regardless of what size or how many companies you're targeting. You've got to do some content marketing. You've got to get that inbound engine working. You've got to make your online presence clear so people can find you and come to you when they need help. ABM is an additional layer you can put on top of that when you are targeting a few especially large companies. So think of inbound as the soil and ABM as the sorts of things you have to do for trees like pruning and grafting that you wouldn't necessarily have to do for smaller plants. So ABM is going to be really useful to you if your product costs a lot. If there's any sort of purchase approval involved in buying your product, it's a good sign that ABM will work well for you. Whereas if someone can just whip out their personal credit card and buy your product, ABM would maybe be overkill. It's also good if you have a finite number of prospects. They don't necessarily have to be big, but if you service a really niche industry and there are only a handful of companies in the world that would benefit from your product or service, ABM is really good for you to be able to find and target those companies. And especially, perhaps the most important of these three, if you sell to buying committees, slam dunk, ABM is for you. If you need to assemble 5, 6, even more stakeholders in order to close a deal, ABM is all about assembling that committee and getting them to buy into your ideas. Benefits of ABM, if those 3 things apply to you and you use ABM, you're going to see increased deal size, better collaboration, specifically between marketing and sales. You're going to see them much more tightly aligned, and you're going to see improved sales velocity. The fact that your deal size gets bigger and your sales velocity improves is pretty spectacular, and that's really a very important selling point for ABM if you're meeting any resistance internally trying to get other people to buy into this idea. The idea of deal size going up and sales velocity increasing. Not many strategies can boast that, but ABM certainly does because of its increased focus on the most valuable opportunities. So that's your whirlwind pitch for why ABM is worthwhile. Let's talk about how to actually go about implementing an ABM campaign. And this part, when I first designed these slides, I was imagining an in-person, right? I might even have like a printed workbook for you to work in, and I would give you assignments and wander around and talk to you. That doesn't translate quite so well over Zoom, but there are still activities in here. I'll briefly give you time to think about them, but I'm going to share these slides out afterwards so you can spend a little more time going more deeply into them. I will use the activity slides as an opportunity to pause. And if you have any burning questions, drop them in the Slack or feel free to unmute and ask me directly. I'm happy to be directed a little bit as we go through this. So the first step of the 5-step process of building an ABM strategy is building a task force. ABM really focuses on this atomic unit of marketing and sales together. Instead of having a separate marketing department and sales department and never the twain shall meet, which is the case in so many businesses, ABM really breaks down all barriers and brings them together. So a task force is at least one marketer and at least one salesperson that markets and sales to an assigned list of targeted accounts. And it really can be just 2 people. And in fact, that's the best place to start. If you're looking to get started with ABM, start small with just one marketer, one salesperson, give them a list of 10 accounts to target, and let them operate as though those 10 accounts are the only businesses in the whole world. As you scale up, you'll want to add salespeople first. A good marketer can support a lot more accounts than a salesperson. When you're going for this really personalized, individualized attention that ABM demands, at a certain point, you can only scale that by adding headcount. So I would say one marketer can support up to 10 salespeople, and one salesperson can support up to 10 accounts. And if there are more than 100 accounts that you want to support, you're going to have to break into multiple task forces, because the bigger your account list get, the more diluted the benefits of ABM could become. So here's an activity slide, as promised. I want you to just think about this. If you wanted to implement this an ABM strategy, and you were going to pick the people from your company to do it, who is the marketer and who is the salesperson you would choose? Maybe you are one of those people. Maybe you are neither one. But regardless, you're probably going to have to sell the idea to at least one other person internally to make this happen. I want you to think about how you'll make that happen. So for all of you who are like ones and twos in that initial survey, think about these things. Jot down some ideas on your computer or on a notepad or something. For those of you who are a little more advanced, the threes and fours out there, think about what your organization is like already. Do you have a task force? Is it clearly defined? And is it scaling well? Is there any changes that need to be made if you're going to keep this strategy going long term? Full disclosure, my disposition is not to be quiet for very long. I have real trouble sitting in silence, particularly in an online setting. So I'm going to do my best to give you about 30 seconds here to think about this. And I'm going to stare at the chat pane in case anyone has a question. And then we're just going to power ahead. 28, 29, 30. That was 30 seconds, right? That was probably like 10. All right. Anyway, as I said, I'll share these slides afterward, but let's keep moving forward. After you've got your task force, you need to choose target accounts for that task force. And this is the thing that makes ABM ABM. You are specifically targeting specific accounts, named accounts. These are the actual companies we are going to try to do business with. There are lots of ways to identify target accounts. I think choosing target accounts is one place where a lot of people get hung up when they're trying to implement an ABM strategy, but there's no one right way to do this. You can look at websites visits, especially if you've got a really good inbound engine going right now. You probably have companies visiting your website that are not currently your customers, and hopefully you have a way of identifying them. If you're seeing in a particularly engaged company or a company that you think you could you could provide a lot of value to, feel free to target them. Look at your current deals. Are there deals that are taking longer than you would like and that would benefit from having additional attention and more personalization? Could be a great place to deploy some ABM tactics. Historical deals. Look at your 10 biggest deals you've closed recently and see if the companies involved have anything in common with each other. Or see if those specific companies have opportunities where you could provide more value to them. And I really want you to think about it in those terms, providing more value to them. Don't think of them as like, how can we go squeeze more money out of them? That will be bad for you and for them. But if there are really opportunities where you can help them grow and improve, additional resources that you can provide, I think that is definitely worth pursuing. I'm even okay with you just going after logos, right? If there's a particular company that if you could put their logo on your website and say, this is someone we have done business with and that would help you get more customers, that's fine, as long as you really legitimately believe and can show to them that you have value to provide to them. This has to be mutually beneficial. The whole idea here is you're going to provide value to them and they're going to provide value back to you, right? That's what doing business means. The last item on this list is an ideal customer profile, ICP. This is probably the default most people go to. I feel like this is a really common idea a lot of companies have, and it's definitely valuable, right? If you can define the sorts of companies that you are most successful in helping, that's great. And if you can find more companies that fit that profile, more power to you, go for it. But I have noticed there are companies that get stuck in trying to define the perfect ICP, and they're always a month away or 3 months away from having it nailed down enough that they can start their ABM strategy, and they just never get around to starting their ABM strategy. So I'm all in favor of an ICP. I think that will develop naturally as you get better at targeting accounts. But if that becomes a hurdle that you can't overcome, don't let that be a deal breaker. I would much rather have you try ABM with a vague notion of what an ideal company looks like and iterate over time than just never get around to trying it. The most important thing is that marketing and sales agree on which accounts they're targeting. More important than how you find these accounts, how you identify them, is that marketing and sales are fully bought in and aligned. Your task force says, yes, these are the 5 accounts or the 10 accounts we are going to focus all of our efforts on, and we're going to build a whole world around them. As long as there's alignment there, you're going to be fine. So here's another activity slide. Again, if you have questions or thoughts, feel free to pop those in the chat pane. But I'm going to give you a few seconds again to think about how you would choose a target account. What method do you think will be most will work best for you? I have them parenthetically mentioned here. And then choose one hypothetical account. You're not committing to anything right now. I'm not going to ask you what account you chose, but just having a specific account in mind, I would like to do business with them, or I think it would be great if our company did business with them, or we've been trying to do business with them and it just hasn't been working. That will help everything else in this presentation be a little more concrete because you can tie it back to that one account. And again, if you already have an ABM process in, or an ABM strategy out there going, think about your actual account list. How is it doing? Should any accounts be removed? Should any be added? How would you define its health? Is it too long, too short? Again, I will do my best to pause. Michael Roberts points out in the chat that similar to website visits, review sites give good data on logos looking at your company. Absolutely. I will come back to the idea of review sites a little bit later, but definitely worth considering. See, I just think silence is no fun on webinars. I try to give space for people to think and be introspective, and then I can't deliver on that promise. So let's continue on. Build account plans. You now have your task force put together. You have your target accounts. Yes, definitely the Jeopardy music in here. That would help a lot. Now you need to build account plans specifically for your target accounts. And building account plans is a muscle your sales team is much more likely to have developed than your marketing team does. But you definitely want marketing and sales both working together on this. Here are just some lightweight best practices. You will be able to figure out what what account plans are going to work best for you. It depends a lot on what you're offering and who you're offering to. But just keep in mind that while your account plans can be very similar from account to account, in an ABM context, they shouldn't be identical. The whole idea here is to tailor your approach to the individual company. So you probably have the broad strokes of what your sales process looks like, where the value is, what people are interested in, what their concerns are. But as you build out your account plan for a specific account in ABM, you've got to go a level deeper and figure out how that applies to the company you're targeting. Also, your account plans can be short and simple. They just need to answer these two questions. Who will be on the buying committee? And what content will you need for each member of the buying committee? Because remember, as I mentioned earlier, a big part of what ABM is for is assembling that buyer committee, the people who need to be in the room and in an agreement before your product or service can be purchased. Here are just 8 common buying committee members. This is not, law written in stone anywhere, but these are sort of patterns that are really common from one sales floor to another. You'll be able to figure out in your account planning who the actual buying committee members are. And remember that a person can be more than one of these, right? Like the end user is the end user is the end user, but whether an end user is a champion or a blocker might vary a lot depending on what sort of product you're offering. So feel free to double those up. Know which of these people is most likely to stand in the way. You really want to spend time on your blockers and invest in winning them over, which will be a theme I come back to again. The main thing to keep in mind here is that different committee members need different content. Hopefully, you've got good content on your website. Again, inbound is that soil we're growing our trees out of. And you can start to repurpose and personalize that, right? If you have a white paper or a blog post or a knowledge doc or a website page or whatever that works well for a broad audience, you can start to tailor that to specific committee members at specific accounts and get a lot more power, a lot more mileage out of those things. You can also build personalized web pages. The thing that's really fun about ABM is how personalized you can get, right? And you probably don't want to go overboard and get creepy, but using dynamic content on your website, you can start to get really personalized. You can build content specifically for people at a given account in a given role, rather than just trying to broadly appeal to personas in a broad sense, right? Events right now are a little tricky, but here we are at an event online. It can be done. And I dare say as the pandemic continues on, events will evolve and there will become new ways to meet people and network and make connections. We'll figure it out. And so definitely don't don't write that off as an impossibility. A report or an evaluation about their company can be very powerful. I think my favorite ABM approach I've ever encountered personally was a guy I was talking to. He started a social media consultancy. And what he would do was he would target an account and he would go look at their social media channels, and he had this evaluation form he would fill out and pointers of where they could improve, things they were doing well, services he offered that would help them improve. And then he would just mail that to key people at that account, right? And so now this is not a broad generic white paper. This is specifically your social media health right now and how I think I can help. You're free to implement these tips on your own, or if you want my help, here's my contact information. I think something like that can be really powerful. And then gifts, I think in some circles is the thing that first comes to mind with ABM, people sending fancy pens in the mail or whatever. I think gifts can be really well done if they're tasteful and they're relevant. Another great thing about ABM is you can experiment with this stuff, right? It would be really expensive and impractical to send a gift to everyone in your contact database. But if you're doing ABM and there's one specific account you're trying to get the attention of, you can send them a thoughtful, relevant gift specific to them, and that becomes less expensive and much more effective. So here's another activity slide. Think about the target. Hopefully you've chosen a target account. I realize I have not given you much time to do this. If you haven't, just think in broad terms. Who do you need to win over at a target account generally? What content do they need? What education do you need to provide them? What concerns do they have that you might need to help them overcome? Or if they're your champion and they're selling it internally to their colleagues, how can you empower them to do that? And then just look at the content you have. Do you have the content you need? Do you need to create it from whole cloth? Do you have it in a broad sense, but need to personalize it to make it more effective? And then if you're already doing ABM, if you're doing these sorts of things, how's your content strategy doing, right? When your salespeople need a piece of content and they're providing it to their champion or trying to win over a blocker or whoever it is they're talking to, can they find that content quickly? Is it up to date? Is it relevant? Is it already personalized? How much work is it for them to get it? These are hard questions you have to ask yourself, and they never go away. There's always room to improve.
I found some Jeopardy music, if that helps. That helps you be less awkward. There you go.
Awesome. So fun fact about the Jeopardy theme, it was written by whatever guy thought up the Jeopardy game show, like not a musician at all. He was just like, I think this is what thinking music sounds like. And boy, did he nail it. Anyway, thanks for that, Doc. We'll continue on. Now is the time to attract contacts, right? You've got kind of all the equipment on the team in place and your targets. Now you're going to go out and do that thing that ABM is all about and inbound is all about, which is getting in contact with people, attracting the right people, engaging them is the next step actually. But think about the best place to position yourself. Similar, like the old adage in the world of inbound is you want to go where your prospects are, right? You don't want them to have to look hard to find you. When they have a problem, you want your name to be the one that pops into their mind. Again, conferences right now are a little tricky, but keep an eye on that. Don't despair. We'll get better at it, and someday the pandemic will end. Industry newsletters, if you can get featured in there, that can be a great way to boost your credibility and your reach. Review sites came up earlier. Review sites are a fantastic way to build credibility. More and more people want reviews on everything. It's not just the mop you're buying on Amazon anymore, right? Like big purchases companies are making, they want to see their peers saying that it worked well. So if you can get yourself positioned there, that's a huge win. Industry influencers are generally very fun to work with and can get you to a broad audience. Ads, again, in ABM, ads is a great place where you can play and get more creative than you would normally be able to, right? Because you don't need an ad that appeals to the whole world or even to a persona broadly. You just need an ad that appeals to 8 particular people at one particular company, right? And you can get super targeted on LinkedIn based on people's company, and you can show just a content that's relevant to them and link to a page you built specifically for them and their company. You can really go deep there. And then sponsored social media similarly. The one rule, the caveat I'll put here is that you need to limit yourself to places your target contacts will already be, content they'll find engaging, and tactics that are within your budget, right? If you don't have a ton of money for ad spend, then you don't have to do ad spend. Especially when you're first getting started with ABM, there's this perception that ABM is expensive, that you can only do it if you're going to spend a lot of money. But the reality is, as with any other strategy, you can start small, you can start cheap, you can start free in a lot of ways. And once you start figuring out the things that get results, then you can build to bigger and bigger things. It's just solid advice for everything, not just ABM. And here are some metrics. Again, I'll be sharing this deck with Doc so he can send it out afterward. Keep these metrics in mind. I'll have more metrics to show you a little later. Just to help you measure success. It's a great starting point. So theoretically, again, you have thought of a target account you want to target. You have thought of the buying committee there and what they need. Now, how do you bridge that gap? How do you get to them? Where are they? How do you get them to know about you? How do you make contact with them? If you don't know how to attract them, what do you need to figure that out? Is it data you're missing? Are there people in your company who know this and you just happen not to be that person? Is it totally unknown and just experimentation and exploration is required? Figure out what the unknowns are and where the answers are. Again, this is sort of like the ABM 101 level. For those of you who gave yourself a higher number, if you're at the 201, 301, 401 level, look at how you're currently attracting contacts. How is that working for you? Are the metrics good? Are you getting the right contacts at the right companies? Is there anything you could tweak to get better results there?
I was waiting for the cue. I hope when
That's just awesome.
I hope when I upload these to YouTube, they don't flag me for some.
Yeah, who knows? I'm super impressed. The pre-show music didn't play, but that Jeopardy is coming through loud and clear. I really appreciate that.
You got it.
Cool. So now let's talk about engaging the committee, right? You've started making contact with these people. You're attracting the right people from the right company. You're starting to get this picture of what the buying committee looks like, the actual people in the actual roles at your target accounts. It's important to remember that this isn't just a sales process at this point. In a lot of other marketing techniques, even in just the general world of inbound, there's a lot of talk about handoffs, right? Marketing does this and you get a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead and you pass it off to sales, and then, marketing is done and sales does their thing. In ABM, that's not the case, because you just have your task force and it's marketing and sales together, and they both need to be working together the whole time. Keeping both involved to drive the deal forward is important. Here are some metrics, again, just a long list. I'm not going to take the time to talk through them because I want to make sure we get this demo in. But marketing and sales should both be aligned together on these particular metrics and making sure they are both contributing to improving them over time. Sales should be informing the content marketing makes. Marketing should be empowering sales to communicate and to reach people. It should really be a joint effort from beginning to end, which is why we started with making the task force. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but now I'm giving you time to think about it. Who in general is going to be your champion and who in general is going to be your blocker, right? A lot of times with big purchases, you have the decision maker, the budget person, who's going to decide yes or no, this is worth the investment. But then they're not the one whose job it is to actually use whatever product is being purchased. That's some other person. And if the end user really loves it, but can't make the case that it's worth the money, or if the budget holder is really into it because of the monetary aspects, but the end user thinks it's a beast to use and no fun at all, how do you bridge that? How do you get everyone on the same page so everyone is unified in their unanimous excitement to be using your product? These are tricky questions. It can be hard to solve this in a general sense for all companies, but with ABM, you can probably solve it for individual target accounts. And for those of you who gave high numbers, here is a specific call out in the chat. I'd be curious if you have tactics for winning over blockers. I think this is the most interesting thing to explore in ABM is how do you win over your blockers? And are there patterns? Is it the same role every time who's blocking? I'm staring at the chat now. Some of you gave big numbers, 4s, 3.5. Any advice for the newcomers on blockers? That's okay. It's worth thinking about anyway. Cool. So we've been speeding through this. I know I've gone quickly. Oh, yes. Michael Roberts points out, have your ducks in a row surrounding security, especially if you're in SaaS. I think that is so smart. I actually hadn't thought of that before. But you definitely don't want the security person to be your blocker, right? Because that's a pretty serious blocker. That's not like we can say some nice things and send you some gifts in the mail and you will forgive us. Like if your security is not good, that is game over, I think. So to sum up, these are the 5 steps I've laid out for building an ABM strategy. You gotta build your task force. It starts there, right? Get the right people involved on your team. Identify target accounts. Keep that team you've built focused on the best possible accounts. Then build an individual plan for each of those accounts and implement it. Start by attracting the right people, building out that buying committee. Once you know who they are, engage them, close deals. So that is your whirlwind tour of how I and HubSpot are sort of thinking about ABM right now. Next, I want to jump into a demo, but I'm going to pause here for just as long as I can. If you have any questions about this, like not theoretical, but like I guess the theory behind ABM before I hop into the tactics of doing it in HubSpot, now's a great time. Don't feel like you have to wait till the Q&A.
Kyle, do you have any tips for selecting? I mean, obviously you had a slide in there for tips on how to identify potential companies. My experience, and I'm curious your feedback on this, my experience in the past has been like talking with sales teams. A lot of times they just will like pick the most pie in the sky prospects that they want to target. And I think there's something to be said for attainability.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like maybe if you go after companies that are like too big or logos that are too big, you're bound to fail. And next thing you know, like ABM may be dead in the water before you can really even get it off the ground. Like, do you have any more tips about like identifying a client that is both like desirable, but is also like a reasonable, good, attainable fit, I guess?
Yeah, and this is one reason why I think it's so important to start with the inbound stuff first and have that there. Because if you just founded your company today and you're trying to pull together a target list of accounts to go after, all you can really do is that pie in the sky analysis of like, gee, it would be nice. These people have lots of money. Whereas if you have your presence established and you're seeing engagement and things, you can pull that engagement into the equation, right? And you can start to say like, okay, here are all the companies that we think we'd like to do business with. Looks like we already kind of have an in with these 1 or 2 over here. They have engaged with us in some sense. And I think that just makes for a much more informed decision. Of course, as a representative of HubSpot and with inbound being the flag we wave, I would definitely not encourage you to just go totally cold. You know, Apple is the most profitable or whatever valuable company in the world right now. Let's try to do business with them. Like if that is your whole equation and you've never had contact with anyone there and you're just going to do purely cold outreach, I can't really recommend that as a good approach, right? Whereas if a smaller company than you might have expected to find value in your stuff is super engaged with your brand online and multiple employees there are super engaged with your social or your blog or something, like maybe it's worth considering that company, getting in contact with them, seeing what you can do for them. I think we tend to get into these mindsets of this is what a perfect customer looks like, right? And then if someone's a little outside of it, we just forget about them, even if they're highly engaged with us. And that is often a mistake. Cool, questions coming in. Danny says, would you say engaging the committee generally is just as good, or should it be more specific to the individual's main topics of concern? So, okay, maybe a bit of ambiguity in the way I phrased this previously. You're going to build the committee, you're going to win them over sort of individually. Hopefully, before you get to the meeting where the committee is, I always imagine in my head, right, they're sitting around a conference table and looking very stern, and there's your salesperson with presentation in hand. Like, I don't know if any sales calls actually go this way anymore, but before you get to that point, hopefully you've had conversations with each individual and you've helped them see how your product is going to help them succeed in their individual roles, right? They feel personally invested that this is the right choice both for them and the company as a whole. And so when it comes time to actually have this sales conversation of where do I sign, how much does it cost, when do we start, everybody's already on board. You've got the hard stuff out of the way, and it becomes just a conversation of logistics. So Danny, if that didn't answer your question, I realize I sort of rambled there. Feel free to ask it again. But hopefully that helps. Chase, any tips on how to identify the champion on the buying committee? So I have a couple of thoughts on this. It's sort of two very different thoughts. One is, if you have a real strong champion, and maybe you won't in every sale, but if you have a real strong champion, they will make themselves apparent pretty clearly, right? They will respond quickly to your emails. They will, when you ask them to do things, they will do them in a timely amount of time. They're motivated, right? They are engaging other people at the company. They're helping you find the other members of the committee. That is a good sign for a slam dunk champion. But I mean, it might not always be like that. I would also suggest, this is just me sort of hypothesizing here, but I would bet, if you look at your existing customer base, even ones that you didn't close through ABM tactics, right? They're just your customers. You got them however you got them. Who is the person that continues to pull for your company? Who is the one who is happiest with the decision? And I mean, it's interesting in the world of HubSpot. We are aware. I wring my hands over this. This really bothers me that HubSpot, might be purchased for marketing tools, for sales tools, but so often, as I'm sure many of you can attest, once the sale is over and we're back in just the normal day-to-day, all the responsibility of maintaining HubSpot seems to fall to one person, the sort of person who comes to a user group like this, often a marketer who didn't sign up for that role, right? And now anytime users have to be added, it falls to them. And that person does a lot of work to continue things moving forward. And you should cherish those people and realize that, like, maybe if they were the champion before the sale, maybe after the sale, they're realizing they signed up for some things they didn't maybe intend to. And so you should be aware of that too, heading into ABM, empowering people as much as possible, both pre-sale and post-sale, and recognizing that the person who's going to be pulling the most weight after the sale should be one of the most eager before the sale, right? If they are sort of lukewarm, not a blocker, but like, nah, it could go either way, like that's going to cause you serious trouble later. And so you should build them into a champion, right? Those are the people you should really be working with to help them catch the vision of how it will be good for them. Cool. So here are the things I'm going to demo for you. I'm going to show you how to select target accounts in HubSpot. There are a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to show you the account overview, which gives you deep look at a single account. And then target accounts home, I'm calling it, even though it's just called target accounts in HubSpot, where you can see all your target accounts together and get some high level metrics. And then your requests, love songs, dedications. I am here from HubSpot. I am here to help however I can. So the title of this meetup was ABM something, blah, blah, blah. But really, like, if you have questions about anything, I'm happy to do my best to answer them. I don't know everything. My knowledge definitely skews toward the sales sides of things, so Sales Hub. But if you have any sort of questions, even if I can't answer them, I'm happy to pass them along to someone else. I was going to say here at HubSpot, here in my living room. I will pass them along to someone else in the HubSpot organization who can answer your question. I'm happy to get you connected to the experts. Think of me as your contact at HubSpot for anything for this time we're together. Don't hold back. So,
and also just to note, we are getting close to the top of the hour, so I know some of you guys might have to jump or whatever. So know that we are going to stick around until everything is answered. We'll run through this demo. Kyle's been kind enough to say he can hang out with us for a little bit longer. So
yes, and actually,
your questions.
Yeah, before people start fading away, I just dropped my real live email address in the chat pane. If you have questions or if you think of something later that, anyway, copy that, save it. Happy to follow up with any of you who are here to discuss more afterward. Yeah, despite me talking as fast as I can, we will be right up against the hour at the end here. So if you have to leave, no hard feelings. You have my email address now. So can I scroll the right way? All right, here we are in HubSpot. And this is a dashboard with a bunch of reports for ABM. one of the first things we rolled out as part of our ABM tools were just a bunch of reports that give you different slices of information relevant to your ABM tactics. I think in interest of time, I won't dive deep into these, but they are here. And if you are doing ABM stuff, you should definitely search in our dashboard library for the ABM dashboard that will work best for you. I think we have 3 different dashboards, each with its own collection of reports. There's a lot here. But if we hop over, contacts drop down here to get to the companies page in HubSpot.
Kyle, just a really quick question are these ABM reports, do they differ from subscription level, from pro to enterprise? Do you know?
Ooh, tier questions are always hard for me. My gut intuition is that they are available to everyone. But I honestly don't know that offhand.
Okay.
Remember, my job at HubSpot is an educator, and we give away education for free. So in my mind, everything should be free. So you can't always trust me when I talk about price stuff. I have certainly made mistakes there before. But yeah, I think the reports thing is pretty low down on the tiering, even if it's not all the way down in the free. So this is the companies page in HubSpot. Just if you have HubSpot, you have a companies page, and it looks something like this. Perhaps the simplest way to make an account a target account is just to check the boxes next to it. And target account is just a company property. So you can hit this edit button here. You can search for target account, and you can just change this to true. And then they would be target accounts, right? And this list, we call it the index page for companies. You can filter it based on any properties. So if you want to just find the companies that are in a certain location or a certain size or an industry, or however you want to do that, you can filter down to that and then check the boxes here next to individual ones or for all of them and turn them into target accounts. Similarly, because target account is a company property, you can use workflows to automate this process. But I would recommend taking one step back from there. We've created another standard ABM property here on companies called ICP tier. I'll show you that a little bit later, or actually I can just show you it now. Why not? I'm talking about it now. So ideal customer profile tier, and this is just a 1, 2, 3, and it's customizable. It looks like in this portal someone added tier A, great. But 1, 2, 3. Then if you have your workflow going through looking at certain criteria, we have a template built for this in workflows. You can have them ranked 1, 2, 3, and then when it comes time to choose target accounts or additional target accounts, you have a ranking to begin with, which also gets back to that question of how do you identify a company in the first place? If you have this tiering going in the background, that can cull your list a lot and narrow it down. So anyway, that's one way to choose a target account. If we just hop into a company record here, this is a company record. Most of you are probably familiar, but just really quick, here on the left, there is a bunch of properties and ability to contact here. Here in the middle, if this was a real portal and not a dummy portal full of dummy data, there would be a timeline here of chronological information. Here on the right, you see associated records and things, but the thing I want to call your attention to is this account overview. This is new. We just added it earlier this year. Here you can see a little bit of information about what's going on with this account. This is another place where you can edit whether or not this is a target account. You can set that right here. But viewing account details, shoot. Okay, this is embarrassing. This is a paid feature. I thought I was in a paid portal. Let me just stop my share real quick. Going back to I am in the wrong portal. This is embarrassing. Okay, and start sharing again. Nothing to see here. All right, this one. Cool. So if we go back to our companies page, so here is a target. Here is an account. So we bumped up against that tiering of what is free and what is paid. Here, this is a target account, as we were just saying. If you choose view account details, if you have pro or above, I believe, then you can see this page. Lame, I chose a bad one, where you can see all the associated contacts and what's going on with them. let me just go for Disney here because I happen to know there's some contacts here at Disney. And here we go. All right, view account. Now we will see up here at the top some metrics specific to this account. And again, this is a dummy portal with not real data, but you would see how many emails and contacts and things. You can see the contacts here, and this is where you can dictate their buyer roles, right? And you can have more than one here. If the executive sponsor is also a blocker, that's a problem. If the end user is a champion, that's pretty good. And then you can see I'm the only person working on this, but if more people in this portal were also interacting with this account, that would be listed here. You can see open deals here, their amount and close date, what schedule they're in. And then again, if this was connected to your website, if you had real data here, you would see page views from this company on your website. You can filter all this information by whatever time frame you're interested in. Real numbers start to appear. That's very exciting. So that is the account overview. That is now on all company records, whether they're target accounts or not. Gives you a deep look into what's going on with them. And then if you want to see a more high level how all your target accounts are doing, if you come to the contact screen and select target accounts, this is the thing I was referring to as target accounts home. This lists all the accounts that you've selected as target accounts, kind of gives you an aggregate view of all that's going on with them here. You can filter them by a variety of things. Again, if you're using that customer profile tier, you can filter by that. You can look to see just, these are the target accounts that have a blocker or no decision maker selected. You can start finding the target accounts that need attention and find ways to move them forward. Also, a third way to choose a target account is to just select them from in here. This is your full list of companies. You can search them and add them here. So that's target accounts home. We are at 58. There, just quick call out here. Prospect shows you companies who have visited your website. You can see, I'll just show you real quick. Based on their IP address, what companies have been visiting. You can filter this based on all the company information you normally use, industry, location, size, revenue, all that, to potentially find more target accounts if you want to focus on the ones that are engaged with you. Back on the page we were just on, there's also recommendations, which serves up things based on AI, depending on what other target accounts you've already suggested or selected. But there is now 1 minute left, and I really want to pause here and just get to this. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, you can find me. You have my email address now, that's great. Again, this deck will be going out afterward. Links to a lesson I created on account-based marketing. It's basically what I covered here, but in a little slower and a little more depth. How to do ABM with HubSpot's free tools. It can be done. I wrote this blog post to prove that even if you're running into paywalls like I did earlier in this demo, you can still get ABM done without paying HubSpot anything. And I'm all for that if you're in the early phases of testing things out. And then if you're just looking for documentation on how to use the tools I've demoed here and some related ones, there's a link for that also. So thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can see people. And like Doc said, I'm happy to hang out for a little bit. I don't have anywhere I need to go immediately. Just thanks for having me, and I am here to help in any way I can. So
thanks, Kyle. Really appreciate it. And also, like Kyle said, we'll be sending this out probably tomorrow. We'll have a follow-up email to all attendees with the links that Kyle was mentioning there, as well as links to some of these other tutorials and whatnot that are online, as well as this slide deck. So be on the lookout for that. And now let's go ahead and just open up the Q&A. Either drop a question in the box or turn on your mic and let's have a chat.
I want to also drop, before people come in and ask questions, I'll also drop a note that this is a great topic to dig into at the intensive if you would like, where we can go in and actually build some of this stuff out within HubSpot portals together. So another little hint to sign up for the intensive.
Oh, one last question. I did have an opening question though. Are there, like in the Sales Pro sequences tool or in Sales Pro, or does that unlock additional features, ABM-ish, that are in that tool?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind, there might be others, but the one that comes to mind first with sequences specifically is there's a setting now inside of sequences where So sequences, you can have automated emails and they go out at regular intervals. You can now do a lot with tasks and sequences also. And the idea is the person remains enrolled in the sequence until either you get to the end of the sequence or they respond in some way, either by replying to an email or booking time on your calendar. There's a setting in sequences now related to ABM where you can have that, it'll terminate all sequences for all contacts at a company if any one of them responds. Right. Ooh. So if you were trying to get in contact with a few different people who might be that decision maker, right, you can enroll them all in your decision maker sequence, personalize that, reach out to them. But as soon as one of them responds, you can stop reaching out to all of them and just focus on the one who's actually engaging with you.
Is that an automatic thing, or is that like something you could do at the contact level? So let's say they respond, yet they're still not the right person, but you're on their contact record. Or if they were the right person, can you make that decision manually and then unenroll everybody?
So when you create the sequence, when you create the sequence itself, there's a setting that is, unenroll all contacts at a company when one person at the company responds. So that would, if you turned it on when you created the sequence, then everyone enrolled in the sequence, it would happen automatically. I don't know if that answered your question or not. I could demo it, but since we're at time, I want to hear if anybody else has questions too.
From everybody else.
I'm confident you and I will talk some more, Doc, some other time.
Yep. All right, let's go.
Jessica dropped one into the chat.
Oh. What is the best way to find out or learn who the decision maker is for target companies? This is a great question. That's so much of what your sales team is going to be doing. And again, hopefully, as you get more sophisticated at this, you'll start to find patterns. You'll start to realize like, oh, the actual decision maker who makes the final call on whether or not we're moving forward with this is typically someone in this role. But frankly, that's why it's so important to engage each member of the buying committee individually. Because sometimes they might not even know, right? Like if they are used to making purchases of the sort that your product is, whatever category it's in, then yeah, it's probably very clearly this person's job to make that decision. But if you're sort of a new thing that they haven't done before, they might not have a lot of clarity on that. And so you'll need to be working with your individual contacts of the buying committee, coaching them through that, encouraging them to figure that out internally, because that can be a huge point of friction if the customer themselves doesn't know. And this is a great place where your salespeople can lead with their expertise. Well, when I work with other companies of your sort, which I've worked with hundreds of them because this is my whole job, it is often the person in this role who makes that sort of decision. Who is that at your company? Do you think they'd be the one to make the decision? Sort of thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
As we wait for another one to come in, I just got one more question for you. You mentioned at the top, you want a company that you're targeting that has a decent deal size. What's your minimum threshold, do you think, to where like a customer either a lifetime value or just a one-time sale? What do you think is a starting point that makes ABM?
I should really work on having a polished answer to this question because it's like common question number one. I get asked a lot, and I don't have
blog post. Let's go.
Right. I don't have a firm. I can't say like $500 is too cheap. 501 is, although 500 is way too low, obviously. But like, that's why I mentioned in the beginning the example of how is this purchase being made, right? Like, and I think buying committee is really more than deal size is the important metric, right? If you're having to work with even just 3 or 4 stakeholders at a company, you should be doing ABM regardless of the deal size, because that's just a lot of people to try to get aligned and talking and excited about one thing. But as for the deal size piece of it, the example I gave was like if someone is just pulling out their personal credit card and buying it, and I think that's fair, right? Like if there is an actual purchase order that's going to happen and like finance has to be signing off on it, already you're starting to introduce more stakeholders. It goes back to the committee size thing again. Whereas if this is just the sort of thing someone might buy for themselves and later expense or not even bother to expense, ABM is going to be such overkill, like trying to use a sledgehammer to drive a nail or something, right? And so that is my vague hand wavy answer. I really think it'll probably vary a lot industry to industry, but I don't know. I assume I'm okay with people sort of trusting their intuitions.
There's a trade-off. There's a trade-off at the beginning, right? I mean, if you're doing it all just organically or whatever, and you're not necessarily spending ad budget to do all the pre letting people know that you exist through awareness ads or whatever the case may be. I guess there's a typical, somewhat in theory, cost savings, but when you have two people going out there from a salary perspective, you still have costs. So it's like, I guess it kind of depends on, I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean,
threshold has to acquire a company.
Yeah. And I think cost of acquisition, lifetime value, initial deal size, I think these are all important things. I think also, like, if you're not doing ABM right now and you talk to the people on your sales floor, my favorite question to ask salespeople is like, what's keeping you from selling? Because every salesperson has a list of things like, this is why it's not my fault I'm having a hard time, right? And one of those things may be like, I just can't manage the buying committee, right? I can't get the visibility I need. I'm talking to this one person, they're super excited, they have no authority in the company, I don't know who I'm supposed to be talking to. Like, if you had more focus and more energy in that thing, maybe that deal would close. And that's, it's just worth thinking about. In the prospects tool, where does the company data come from? Is it only known users who have filled out? Oh, this is a fantastic question. Okay, so the prospects tool is looking at the IP address of the person who's visiting. So even if they're an anonymous visitor, they've never filled out a form, we have no idea who they are. Based on their IP address, which probably less, I realize now, probably less reliable now that everybody works from home. But in an ideal world where people are in an office, we look at their IP address and we can associate that with a company. And the same magic we use when you add a company to your HubSpot CRM and it fills in a bunch of stuff like their location and their industry and their size and the date founded. And we have these public record sources that we aggregate and we search and we update, so we can add a little enrichment to your records when we create them. We're using that exact same tool in the prospects tool. So as a website visits or as a person visits, if we can identify their company in one way or another, then we can enrich those records, and that's where that list comes from that you can then filter and search.
It's very easy just to, as you're there, click the box and add that person or add that company to your company record. So then you can show that view that he was showing earlier. Yeah,
there's just a button to add them in, and then
looks like we went over. We skipped a question talking about the ICP, I think.
Oh, sorry, Chase. I haven't set ICP tiers for any companies. Is there an easy way to automate that, or is it important to manually assign those tier classifications? So we created, if you have workflows, we created a workflow template for this very thing, and it's just it's pretty basic, honestly, branching logic of like, if this, then tier 1, if this, then tier 2, and you have to sort of fill in the blanks. This really sort of assumes that you have done the work to create an ICP, or that you at least have the data to pull that out. But you would have to figure out the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 thing based on yourself. I believe the template has like starting points. Like these are we might put industry and annual salary, not salary, revenue, or those sorts of things that tend to be tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. It's been a while since I looked at it, but that can be a good starting point for automating it.
But like one step above or before tier 1, and almost have the automation run those rules based upon some of that data collected. That could just be like hey, we need to look at these guys, and then from there determine if they're 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
All right. Any additional questions? Feel free to hop on the mic or submit. Really? Here's that silence that Kyle hates so much.
No, I'm fine with it now because like I have nothing left to say. Like there's no there are more slides I have to get to. The pressure is gone. Like it's all gravy now. This is the part of the hug where we're like hanging around the concession table, right? And like eating whatever's there and talking about stuff. Like
any other questions? Just HubSpot in general. If it's not around ABM, if anybody has some questions around HubSpot in general, we can answer those too. Hopefully.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I clicked on, I'm in the prospects window, and I clicked on one of the companies, and before I clicked on it, it says it's sorted by last seen. So someone's looked at my site, I guess, today.
Okay.
And I clicked on it, and then it gives me the information that said that they were first seen on 2 years ago. And then it tells me the source is organic search. So I want to know, is that from 2 years ago or from today, or the source?
That's a great question. I would assume it's the initial source information tends to be the first visit, but I'm not 100% on that.
I would imagine that's the first. You could probably open up that company record and look in the source data, the first touch data, and it'll give you the history. So you can click on that little.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I'll stop the recording so everybody doesn't have to listen to the nothingness. So I'll stop that now. And I will say before I do that, thank you for coming today, everybody, and be on the lookout for the follow-up emails as well as the invitation to the intensive. Again, that is going to be first come, first serve, 12 people max. So if you're interested in coming, we would absolutely love to see you there. With that, we bid you adieu. Everybody say hi or bye. All right, we'll stop the recording.